Hey, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome to our Scholarship Guide webinar series. I hope everyone is doing well throughout this very difficult time. So today we have with us a very interesting topic, and I'm sure a lot of students are very interested to find out more. So if you are aspiring to be in the advertising industry or the media or marketing industry, we have a veteran here today to speak with us and to share some of the insights of the industries and some of the happenings of it. So we have with us today Mr. David Fay. So if you don't know, David Fay is actually the publisher for Scholarship Guide. And just to share a bit of his background, David started off as a copywriter, winning awards in New York, London, Hong Kong, and Singapore for work on Carrier, Cold Storage, Durex, and Nissan. So he learned his trade at American, English, French, and Southeast Asian and Japanese agencies, growing from creative to client servicing, strategy planning, and agency management. The campaigns he has led includes rebranding SGX and Singapore Polytechnic, Pantai Hospitals in Malaysia, Ballantyne's Whiskey's entry to China, Imira's Laundry's entry to Singapore, and the development of the Kofu brand. So he has served on the Association of Accredited Advertising Agencies, or 4As, Executive Committee, and as a panel judge for Singapore Media Awards in 2010 and 2011. Today, David heads the corporate communication at Centurion Corporation Limited, managing brands and communication for Westlight and Dwell Student Living across the UK, US, Australia, Korea, China, Malaysia, and Singapore. So without further ado, let's welcome David, and I'll hand the time over to David.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I hope you will find this session interesting. Let me start by sharing my screen so that you can see some materials that I prepared specifically for today's session. If you've signed up because you've read the introduction to today's webinar, you might find the theme, the topic, a bit interesting. I'm not sure which word caught your attention more. Was it target audience or mother-in-law? I hope today to share with you some of the understanding of the marketing communications business that I picked up over the many years. Later, if any of you can tell me what are these agencies that I've worked for, American agency, English agency, French agency, Japanese, and Southeast Asian, that would be very exciting. Okay, today I'll be sharing with you some of the learnings, understanding. You will not, after 45 minutes, own the science and art of marketing communication. That takes much more time and investment of energy and sweat, blood, tears. But hopefully it will give you some sense of a direction of what the playing field is like, so that you can begin to start at level 1 and level up over time. Okay, let me start by just outlining what is communication about. Marketing communication, after all, is based on communication, and it's just marketing. Actually, marketing and sales, how different are they? There are many arguments in many companies and between many friends about which is more important, sales or marketing. Actually, the two of them are twins. Sales and marketing are hand in hand, side by side twins that help a business or a company introduce, promote their product to a potential customer. And I'll explain a bit more about the difference between sales and marketing, but it all fundamentally starts with 4 main elements. In any marketing or sales or marketing communication job or task, there are 4 elements. The first element is me, the marketeer. I want to promote or sell something to the target consumer. In this case, let's look at my mom-in-law. She's someone that I'm constantly trying to persuade to do something. So you could be selling a product. I might want her to help support us to buy our new matrimonial home. We need some cash, okay? I need her to loan us some money to buy our home, for example. Or I could be selling her a service and say, hey, mom, would you like me to pick you up from work today? Or I could be asking for help. Mom, could you help me take care of my kids so that me and your daughter can go and have some me time over the weekend, right? So it starts with us, me, the marketeer, trying to sell or promote a message to my target audience. Now, obviously, how I ask or deliver that message, it's a medium, or if in more than one medium, many media, right? If I'm just sending a simple message like, would you like me to pick you up on the way home? I could send her a WhatsApp chat, easy. But if it's an important question like, Mom, can we park our daughter with you for the weekend so that me and your daughter can go and have personal me time? I might want to pick up the phone and speak to her more gently. Or in that very first conversation when I first went to her and say, would you let me marry your daughter? Please bless our marriage. I probably might want to take her out for dinner, and do go the whole hog, right? So the message and the medium have to work together to achieve that response I want from her. So these are the four elements in any communication, whether you're selling a bag to a friend or convincing your scholarship interviewer to pick you instead. Whatever communication, it's always four elements. Me, the marketeer, the target audience, my mom-in-law, the message, and the medium. So start there, right? But what if instead of a one-to-one communication, which is like direct sales or direct marketing, that's one-to-one, you know exactly who you're talking to, and hopefully you know what she likes, what she hates, when she's busy, when she can pay attention to you, you know the target audience. What if suddenly, instead of talking to my mom-in-law, I want to start a community, a support for misunderstood mothers-in-law, okay? And I want to attract 1 million mothers-in-law to join this community and get support, help each other, take care of their grandchildren. And maybe in time I can offer to market this community to a business or a company to say maybe mothers-in-law are the best people to persuade young couples to have more children, to increase the birth rate in Singapore, for example. And my objective now is to reach 1 million mothers-in-law, not one. Suddenly, the message and the medium, selection, what media I use, how I deliver the message, how many media I use to reach 1 million mothers-in-law, one medium probably isn't enough. I need to send the same message in many different media, many times per day or per week for them to receive and remember and react. Okay, think about it, the 3 R's. Receive the message, remember, or react to the message. Okay, now this then becomes marketing on a mass scale as opposed to direct sales one-to-one. Okay, now bear in mind that if a sales department or a head of sales in a company like L'Oreal, okay, or Grab, yeah, needs to sell to restaurants to join Grab Food, he is talking to hundreds of restaurants as well. So he has a sales team of 20, 30 people. So the larger the audience gets in terms of numbers, the larger the job becomes in terms of sales and marketing. Not only that, so I mentioned that as I need to start talking to a larger audience, a group, a community of audience, I need to talk to them in many ways. Think about this. On this chart, I've showed you what kind of media people consume. All of you, all of us, every day would at least see more than half of the media listed on this page. All right. So you have the very mass media that reach a large number of people. Then you have the narrow media that reach smaller numbers of people, but still quite large. Okay. Then you have the direct media that when you know exactly who you want to talk to, that particular person, you can send direct messaging to that person rather than broad messaging to a large number of people. So if you look at the total media ecosystem, the whole media industry out there, you've got mass, narrow, direct, but you've also got traditional or offline media, and then you've got digital and online media. And from the mass to the narrow, you might have newspapers, but the newspapers also have news websites. You might have TV channels, but then you would have video on demand, or you have, video streaming, right? You might have outdoor billboards. Well, there's no direct comparison with outdoor billboards, except maybe on websites you have what you see the banners on the top of the website. That is perhaps closest to your outdoor billboard. It's a mass media display banner on a website. For every traditional media that exists before the digital age, or into the digital age, they've had to reinvent themselves and create, or new media entrepreneurs have created digital versions. And today, the average consumer still sees at least 20 to 50 different media channels and receives anywhere between 2,000 to 5,000 messages a day through all the media. So one of the terms I threw out in the introduction to this webinar is media consumption habits, day and life. So one thing that marketers have to understand for their target audience, my mom-in-law, what media does she consume? When does she consume it? And how does she consume it in the average day or average week of her life? So in the morning when she wakes up, she's probably going to switch on the radio. Or maybe even the first thing she goes to is her Facebook or her WhatsApp, right? Then while she's driving to work or riding the MRT to work, she's probably got her earphones on. Maybe she's listening to radio podcasts or live radio streaming, or she's listening to Spotify. Then when she gets into work and she switches on her computer, maybe the first thing she does, she opens her email, and in her email, she can receive emails, her mailbox, and so on and so forth. Now, throughout the day, when she goes out for lunch, she's going to walk down the street. Like it or not, on the fringe of her eyesight, she will see the outdoor poster at the bus stop, right? And even if she doesn't pay attention to read the poster, she will have a glimpse, and if the poster is impactful, will register and be remembered. So if you map the average day of your target audience, you will see that they consume all kinds of media throughout the day, and you will have the opportunity to send them messages. Certain media, certain messages, they will pay more attention to, certain media less so. So there's one common saying among strategic planners and media planners. A newspaper is a source of information, but a magazine is a friend. Yeah. Even today, to some extent, a news website you go to for information, but an influencer blog or IG, maybe it's a Fitspo Instagrammer you're following, that channel is closer to your heart. You have greater liking and engagement and involvement with it. So certain media you consume at what we call arm's length, certain media you consume in a very engaged way. Your potential and likelihood to respond, react by liking, sharing is very different for different kinds of media. So when we map out what our target audience consumes, it helps to know not just what they see, when they see, but also how they consume that media. so that you're able to plan your media message and deliver the right message through the right medium at the right time and in the right way. So far what I've talked about is me, the marketer, delivering a message to the target consumer and the media landscape, the media selection process. Many tools, okay, when you talk about the science and art of marketing communication, there are many planning tools, many executional tools that you will learn in your university program, or perhaps even more so when you start work, right? One tool that we use in this area is research, and that's heavily so. Uh, Before digital data, website cookie-based, data, there were research companies, and still are, like Taylor Nielsen Sofris, that every year, that's what we call an omnibus research study. They go out and in every country where they operate, they literally questionnaire thousands of people to ask them, oh, what media do you consume and what do you like, how you react and all that, right? And then they consolidate this data into a syndicated research, right, called the Advertising Expenditure Report. And marketing planners, media planners are able to subscribe to this research, and based on a certain audience profile, mothers-in-law aged, okay, mothers-in-law is not probably available, but working professional women aged 35 to 45 uh, with university education of a certain level or income of a certain level, based on a certain profile of a target audience, this subscriber omnibus research will then tell them what media they watch or read. And then based on that, the media planner will say, okay, let's do that. Today, you can buy Google display banners based on certain profiles, certain interests, certain demographics, and Google will feed that banner to that audience based on their knowledge of the website visit habits of that audience. So a lot of the media consumption is based on knowing your consumer, knowing your target audience, right? Only if you know your target audience, then you can plan accurately what media to use. But it's not only the media, it's the message as well. Let's say I want to start this community of mothers-in-law, and we name this community or this group Misunderstood Mothers-in-Law, okay? And we want to gather them all to build a community so that we can help each other or help them to live more happily with their daughters and sons-in-law, support and care for their grandkids, and maybe help convince their parents, their children and children-in-law to have more kids so that they have grandchildren and the population grows. And all of these things we want to do, right? But how do we attract them to first sign in and join this community to build this marketable product? So the message always has to have a desired response. In this case, the response I want is, I want them to click a link, register or visit and follow a community probably built in the social media space. Okay. So after the media consumption studies and planning out which media we will use to reach these mothers-in-law, maybe it's Facebook, maybe it's IG, maybe it's Straits Times Online, maybe it's Spotify, Netflix, or maybe even YouTube or Candy Crush in-app ads, right? Once we decide, then we have to decide what's the best message to send to excite that response from them. Okay, now bear in mind, if the average consumer is getting thousands of messages viewed through dozens of media every day, every hour, why should they pay attention to your message? Why should they listen to my message about misunderstood mothers-in-law and want to join in? Unless it's a topic close to their heart that they're interested in, right? So if you look at some of these messages that we could send out, for example, the straightforward one, hey, we're starting a support group for misunderstood mothers-in-law and would like to invite you to join. Are they likely to respond to that? Or if we threw out a promise like, hey, build better bonds with your in-laws, we show you how. Or maybe it's the promise or the offer to say, hey, you can get support from us if you need help caring for your grandkids, if you want to learn how to live happily with your son-in-law, you're quarreling with him all the time or more, here's where you can get support. Whether it's learn hacks, tips, supports, and maybe we throw in a hook to say, every time you participate, you earn points and you get holidays and cash too, right? Or maybe it's just empathizing to say, hey, I know your problem, right? And if you run a headline or you run a advert post that says, help, my daughter-in-law hates me. So the same response that we desire, you can excite that response through different messaging and different creative ways of communicating. Now that's where the art and science. So to some extent, media mapping, media planning, media selection might be a bit of a science, very data driven. And the messaging tends to be a little bit more art, creative development. But even then, there's a bit of science to it. So in the digital space, when you see banner ads running, or you see video ads in your apps or favorite music and video channels, very often a company might create 2 or 3 different versions of ads. And then what they do is they do what we call A/B testing or copy rotation of their ads. So if I do 3 versions of ads, and it can be different messages, or it can even be different color backgrounds to the ads, then I run the ads at the same time, but different hours of the day or different days of the month, or even different websites run different versions of the messaging. Then we track and see which gets highest response, click-throughs, or highest eyeballs, impressions, right? Then we know which works better. Then over time, digitally, what we call optimize our ad campaign for enhanced performance. So even in the message creative execution of the message, delivery of the message, there's a bit of science involved. For example, there are tools in the space that do what we call eyeball tracking. So in the old days on newspaper or magazines, they would do studies where people say what I see first, what I see second, what I see third. Today on the digital space, you can run web pages where people will follow your mouse and capture your mouse, what your mouse does, and they'll see on a page what you read first, what you read second, at what point you click. When I run a website, we can look into what we call Google Analytics, which is a freeware platform offered by Google that helps website track when people visit website, what people do at the website. So in the same way that if you visit a supermarket and the supermarket constantly tracks and monitors where people walk first, where they walk second, what they put in their trolley first, what they put in their trolley second, and they track and monitor the shopper experience. And then around that, there's this whole new science of what they call shopper marketing. So if I put the sauce packet next to the fresh meat section, will it excite more people to pick up that sauce package and buy it together with the meat? Or if I put the frozen food in the front part of the store, will it sell higher? Or if I put it at the back of the store? So there's this whole science about how to encourage shoppers to build the basket, put more into the checkout basket. Likewise, in the web space, there is Google Analytics that tracks and measures, the first page you visit is the home page. The second page you visit is the rooms page. Or the third page you visit is the linen page, right? And at what point do you register? At what point do you put that product in your basket? At what point do you check out? Likewise, in e-commerce stores, they do all that tracking through Google Analytics. So between the media and the message, there's a lot of data and science to understand the consumer. Now, I hope what you're hearing so far helps you understand that when we look at the 4 key elements, of course, the marketer is important. What is my product? What am I trying to sell? You might argue with me that trying to start a community of misunderstood mothers-in-law is the most naff idea you ever heard. It's never going to succeed, right? Okay, so it's the product. It's important. If I have a really tough product to sell, I'm going to have a hell of a difficult job to do. The message, the media, all have to be selected carefully, crafted, planned to achieve the maximum effect for the budget that I have. But ultimately, the final most important factor is the consumer audience that you are trying to reach, the target audience. If you don't understand the target audience, or you don't understand what makes the target audience respond, what's going to trigger, then you can have the best product in the world and fail to sell it effectively. So a lot of the messaging comes down to creativity. Now, I'm intentionally showing you what looks like a very gross ad. And you might ask yourself, do you like this ad? It's an ad that Burger King ran, quite a while back, a few years back. And it's an ad that today is still talked about, it's still argued about. Some love it, most hate it. In the web space and in the universities, they talk about this as a good or bad example of effective creativity. But ultimately, when every consumer out there is receiving thousands of messages, hundreds of media from different competitors every day, how do you cut through the clutter? How do you get your audience to see you, pay attention to you, remember you, react to you? Do you talk to my head? Do you talk to my heart? If you look at ads that run, there are many ads that don't even try and give you a message, especially in the fashion, beauty, perfume space. All they show you is an image of a lifestyle that they think their consumer aspires to, wants to associate with. And then they put the logo and the product there, and you will associate that logo and product with that lifestyle, that moment in time that people aspire to. And that's really appealing to the senses, as appealing to a emotional aspiration. Doesn't talk to the head very much, right? And then you've got other communication ads that are very rational. Buy a BMW because it's the most perfectly engineered car in the world. Then there's the argument that actually that rationale is just to help you convince your wife that it's okay to spend that money. Actually, what you really wanted is just this beautiful brand that you want to associate with, right? So when people buy things, is it a rational decision or an emotional decision, or both? And if that kind of product tends to be an emotional decision, then certain types of ad work better. If it's a rational decision, other types of ads work better. But ultimately, then there's also the shock factor, right? Talk to my head, touch my heart, or shatter my senses, which this ad tries to do. Essentially, it's a very good and rational message. Burger King has no artificial preservatives. That's why it's better for you, healthier for you. They chose to do it in a very unexpected way, show you a Whopper after 20 days, how it cannot stay fresh because there are no artificial preservatives. So it's attention grabbing and very probably very memorable once you see it. Question, is it effective? Does it convince you to prefer Burger King more than McDonald's or other burgers in the market? Because food ultimately is about appetite appeal, right? And if the image you remember about Burger King is a moldy burger, do you see appetite? Do you feel ready to grab a Burger King burger? So I'm sure even among the 100 plus of you that are attending today, there will be different opinions. Talking to the head, talking to the heart, or shock the senses, what is going to be most efficient, effective for your message, your brand, your product? Okay. So again, in the industry, among marketeers, among the academics in the universities, among the advertising agencies, there's still argument and still different point of views about, yes, shock, memorable, effective? Question. Another very important thing to bear in mind is this. Every purchase was a journey. Everything that you decided or bought was a journey. Some journeys are short journeys, some journeys are longer journeys. For example, I'm thirsty. I want to buy a cola or a cold drink. I'm walking down Orchard Road. COVID restriction measures are over. I'm walking down Orchard Road. I'm thirsty. I want to buy something. I see a 7-Eleven sign. I see a McDonald's sign, the Golden Arch. I see, unbranded hot dog stand sign. Which do I choose? And then when I walk into the McDonald's, I see the menu bar on the top above the cashier. And I know I can choose Coke, iced tea, or the in and out flavor of the month. There's maybe a special guava drink or whatever, right? So I choose my drink. And then I look down at the counter, there's today's menu special promotion, or the pack. And I can upsize my drink with maybe nuggets or fries, and I'm tempted to upsize my basket. Now, you see that? It's a journey. I have a need. I look down the street, I look at the signs, I research, then I go in, I choose. Maybe it's a product I need to try first before I choose, right? Maybe they have samples for the new drink, and I try the drink before I choose it. Then I purchase. After that, I use, well, not sweet enough, or flat, no fizz, right? And then there's some dissatisfaction. And then I love it or not, I decide to repurchase or not. Now, obviously, just for a cold drink, it's a journey. And this is what we call the path to purchase or journey to decision, right? And everything that you buy goes through a similar process. If I'm applying to go to university, say I just graduated from my A-levels or poly, I want to go and study in the UK. I'm applying to university. So I want to go and study in the UK. I'm researching which university to do. Trial, maybe not possible to try, but some people during travel time, I can go and visit the university, take a look, right? Or I can talk to friends who have visited or studied at the university, And so either hands-on, I try it myself, or I take third-party referral trial. I choose, then I apply, I get admitted, I start the study. Maybe I want to follow on with my master's degree in the same university or not. Every decision essentially is a journey. And why do we call it a roller coaster ride? Because there's an emotion at each stage. I could be a very hungry man, hangry man, and suddenly, I'm at that stage where I'm not feeling too happy. So, amber. Then as I start to look at my choices, I look at a lot of appetizing food, I start to get excited, I'm starting to feel a little bit high. At the point that I try the product, maybe I'm not excited, maybe I'm a bit unsure. Very often when I make my choice, I'm uncertain that I made the right choice. A lot of people might wonder, oh no, did I make the right choice? And after you make your choice, there's a little bit of uncertainty, a bit of worry. When you buy it, the actual act of buying or committing it, many times people feel a bit high, feel happy. Wow, that I've reached a stage, I've chosen, I've bought, let's try it now. Then maybe the use was satisfying. So you see the whole journey is an emotional track as well. There's a rational decision, there's an emotional decision. A few things to understand about this consumer journey. The consumer asks different questions at each stage. The questions I do at the research stage versus the questions I ask, the information I want to receive at the decision stage are going to be very different. Maybe at the research consideration stage, I want to know what are the features, what are the functions, what are the users of this product. You know, is it light, is it heavy? What's the battery life of this mobile phone that I want to buy? And at the point that I'm deciding to buy, maybe what's going to drive me is the price, the promotion, any freebies, what's the warranty guarantee? You know, and at the point I use it, maybe I'm looking for instructions on how to use. Maybe the phone in my camera needs to be used a certain way. You know, I want the bokeh effect, but I don't know how to get it, right? So at each stage of the customer journey, there are going to be different questions with different details that the marketer needs to send to the consumer. If you, as a marketer, choose only one medium of communication, that may not be the medium that the consumer goes to at the different stages. At the research stage, I'm probably going to do it online. Visit a lot of websites, visit a lot of review columns, blog posts, fan clubs, community pages, and see what the reviews are, the consideration stage, right? Yeah. At the purchase stage, I might be visiting promotions pages. I'm just going to zoom in that one product I've chosen. I'm going to look at all the different price promotions of that. I might go to Lazada and Shopify and, you know, different e-commerce sites to find the best deal on the same product, you know, whether it comes with delivery charges or not. So you need to use different media at different decision stages. You need to understand what are the questions being asked about the same product at different stages and use the right medium to deliver that right message. So you can see it's a bit of a matrix, right? But it boils down to understanding the consumer. What's the journey this consumer is going through? What's the questions being asked? What medium is being consumed to find those answers so that you can deliver the right message at the right time in the right medium to the right audience. Yeah, I hope this is making sense and helping. Now, this is then where data and analytics come in. You know, data and analytics is something that has become a very spotlight, highlighted career and skill set in the last 5-10 years. But don't misunderstand this. Data learning inside action, the use of consumer data to guide marketing planning and activity has existed for 30, 50 years, 80 years. If you've watched Mad Men, the series, if you've done a bit of history reading on advertising and marketing, you'll know that way back when the L'Oreals and the SK2s and, you know, all these brands or the Nestle's, when they launch a new product or they create a new TV commercial, they will do research, they will test. They will do either quantitative research, questionnaire based, or they will do qualitative research, which might be focus group discussions, coffee table chats. And based on the data learnings from the research, they will then plan and guide. Now, what has happened with the digital age? That data has become much more available and much more quickly available. Okay. So in the old days, Visa and MasterCard and the banks were based on, you know, their data generation. No, oh, credit card holders, when do they spend the most money? Credit card holders, what do they use the credit card for? Okay. So just as an interest point, it tends to be that the last week of the month and the first week of the month is when credit card usage is highest. Okay, right? And then, of course, for certain different types of audience profiles, age and income level, education level, different kinds of restaurants, different kinds of shops would be there. Now, today, that data is available also through all the websites. So Lazada knows, Shopify knows, for sure Alibaba, Tencent knows. When do customers visit these shopping sites more, and when do they buy more? So it happens Mondays and Thursdays between 11 to 1 and between 6 to 9 p.m. Those are the highest peak shopping times on most e-commerce sites globally. So data is available. So when people look at data, they will see what did the target audience do, when did they do it, where did they do it, yeah. Was it through a laptop, through a mobile, through a tablet, or was it at the store? And if the same brand has both an e-store and a physical store, was there a habit noticeable trend in between? So that is data. The learning is when you look at the data and extract a consistent trend or habit that you know, hey, this has been happening and it's likely to continue happening. Okay, and then the data and learning needs to translate into an insight. Why did they do it? Why is e-shopping highest during Mondays and Thursdays, 6 to 9 p.m.? Why not Saturday, 9 to 12 midnight? Yeah. And is there a desire, a need, a situation, condition that created this trend or habit? So my mother-in-law would call me 4 p.m. every 2 days and ask, how is my daughter, how is my this and how is that? And sometimes the call has nothing important. It's just this need to connect. Why did she do it? Is there a moment in her week when she's bored stiff, nothing better to do, and just needs to come and kacau me? You know, and with that insight, then you can see the action that you can take to tap that consumer's need or desire. So this is what a very specialized group of marketing specialists do, or digital practitioners do. They work with data, and sometimes even this task is divided between different specialists. One person captures and extracts the data, another person analyzes it to extract learning, and maybe needs to work very closely with the salespeople, the receptionist at the hotel, the waitress at the restaurant, to understand, hey, why did this happen? Okay, and this might be all of the whole organization, not just the marketing person. Who engages the customer the most? Who understands the customer's actions the most, to drag that insight out and then plan how to address it. Now, often this data learning or DLIA sequence can also apply to R&D for the next model. Yeah. So what happened? Handphones began to parallel the growth of food porn. You understand what happened? As the users began to use a certain product for a expanded purpose. So handphones, instead of talk time, became useful for restaurant reviews, catching the moment to share on Facebook and IG. And influencers began to use the handphone to snap food porn to post. And it created a whole industry generation and a whole following of people where the usage of the handphone today is equally about chat, talk, and food porn. Right? Now, what happened? The handphone makers then began to build better and better cameras, two cameras into one mobile phone, and building features to help people do more with the pictures they take through their handphone. So this data learning insight action then began to uh, began to be integrated into new product development R&D. And you see how there's a virtual cycle, and the consumer centricity, the focus on the consumer and the consumer's need, desire, usage, habit, push back to the product. Okay. And today there's hardly any mobile phone, high-end smartphone launch that doesn't at least mention the fact that it's got a camera. Yeah. So I'm going to wrap this up fairly soon, coming to the last one or two parts. What I hope you will remember here is this, that ultimately marketing or marketing communication boils down to selling a message to a person and getting a reaction from that person. And remember, this is a person, not a stat. Another tool that marketers use a lot is they build what we call a customer persona or a buyer persona, also known as a buyer persona. And this is like your stereotype, archetype of your mother-in-law, for example, or your customer audience. And it defines what are the key stats, the key traits of your core audience. Okay, mostly people will spend this effort to focus on their primary audience lah. Okay, now if I'm trying to, if my product or message is help me take care of my children while I go off and spend me time with my wife, then the primary audience is the mother-in-law. Okay, but if what I really want to do is convince my wife to do something, and I'm hoping to talk to the mother-in-law to influence my wife to do something, then she's my secondary audience or influencer audience rather than my core audience, right? But marketers often will build this persona first for their core audience and then for their secondary audiences. And a lot of times building this persona helps the marketer to define the media selection, the messaging creation, as well as the media mapping of when to deliver which message through which medium. And it's based on data collected through user research or web analysis, like what I mentioned, customer surveys, customer research, focus group studies, and or website, Google Analytics, different sources of data to build this profile. Now, I want to point out 5 areas that typically are the important sections of a customer persona. The first at the bottom left is what we call demographic. This is, age, occupation, married, single, divorced, male, female, LGBT, or prefer not to stay. What are the locations? What is this person like? Yeah. Then this, in a sense, relates to all the other parts. The psychographics is more personality, interests, and behaviors. Yeah. So most mother-in-laws, well, for sure would be female, a certain age profile already, a certain career stage in life, and therefore would have certain likes, dislikes, maybe likes travel, likes cooking, is a volunteer to give back to society through certain organizations, right? And she has certain beliefs, personality traits, interests, and behaviors. So now you see how this begins to shape what kind of media she consumes. So next to that, the media brands, and this is the media consumption. Out of all the media that she will see every day, which one does she pay attention to? Which one does she spend time on? Which one does she believe and trust? There are certain media you see that you don't believe or trust, right? And that media is less likely to influence you, right? Then below that is decision influences. So what triggers her? Yeah, maybe she loves her husband the most out of everything, and the best person to influence her is her husband, my father-in-law. So maybe instead of spending all my time, focus, and budget trying to buy her dinner and convince her to do something, maybe I should spend 20% of my time and effort to say, hey, Dad, can you help me convince Mom to do this? And by that, sharing that message to her, it might increase my chance of getting the right response from her. So what are the influences and what will trigger her to respond the way I want? Then to help me craft the message, motivations, frustrations. You see among the messages I put out for consideration, one of them was, help, my daughter-in-law hates me. And that's a frustration, right? Correct? Maybe she keeps quarreling with her daughter-in-law and she wants to solve the problem but doesn't know how to solve it. And that's a frustration that we can appeal to, right? Or it's a motivation to say, hey, I want to go on holiday, but I got no time to take care of my grandkid and still go on holiday. So the motivation is give me time or find me someone who can help take care of my grandkid, right? Maybe it's a babysitter or something, right? So what are the motivations and frustrations that will help this woman, this target audience, to this consumer persona to react positively? So, okay, this is the last sharing slide. And I hope I've managed to give you a sense of what the marketing communications business is about. The marketeer, what he wants to say, the message, the media selection, and most importantly, the target audience. Who is she? What drives her? What triggers her? Okay. Now I'm going to end this session with a bit of a confession. All right. And this is a confession. Actually, the idea of the team, the target audience is my mother-in-law, is not exactly a fresh concept. Okay. If you all have watched this series called Mad Men, which is, advertising men on Madison Street, right? They often mention to this person, David Ogilvy. David Ogilvy is commonly called the father of advertising. Englishman who went to US, started one of the first advertising agencies, Ogilvy and Mather, and he's called the father of advertising. And he was the one who said a few things. One thing he said, never forget advertising is to sell. Even if advertising is designed, created to entertain, underlying the entertainment is to sell a message or a service or a product to get a response. The other of his famous sayings is, the consumer is not a moron, she is your wife. And underlying this is the thought that never talk down to your consumer, never try to lie and cheat your consumer, never try and give an untrue picture or false message to your consumer, or never treat her like a moron. The consumer is someone that you should know and care about, like your wife. Okay, so I think that's the underlying message. One of the best things you can do if you want to be a successful marketer is define your consumer audience. Go out, meet, talk, make friends with your target audience. Understand your target audience in every way. Then you'll be able to do effective, successful marketing communications. That's a wrap, everyone. Thanks for joining me. You can ask me anything.
Thank you so much, David, for the very informative session. So right now we are opening the floor to Q&As. If you have any questions, you can just type it into the chat box and I'll serve as the moderator. But if you're interested in whatever David has shared thus far, then maybe you can consider studying mass comm or marketing as one of your majors, because basically these are the things that you have to learn when you go through communication studies. And I'm sure this is something that it will interest some of you. Yeah, I can start off the questioning to David. So you've shared so much on advertising and marketing, right? So what actually made you decide to pursue a career in advertising and marketing?
Wow, I have to try to remember that far. Okay, I love words. I love language because ultimately, okay lah, maybe you could say I love to communicate. So I I went to school in University of Oregon, where I learned journalism as well as the English language. Um, and I knew from the very start that I wanted to join advertising as a copywriter. So I was very blessed to be offered an internship at Ogilvy in 1989 when I came back from Oregon. So in a sense, it's because I love words and I love the craft of creating messaging on words. So that's where I started. But after joining advertising and spending the first 4 years of my career, 5 years as a copywriter, I was at Ogilvy and Mather, that's the American agency. 2.5 years later, I went to Lintas, which is an American agency. Then after that, I was poached to go to an agency called Fong Hart and So, a Singaporean agency that later was bought by TBWA, another American agency. So for that first 5 years, I was a copywriter. Then later on, I went to become a strategic planner at Publicis. So learn different parts of the whole communication and advertising business over time.
Okay, so we are getting quite a lot of questions on marketer as a career. So maybe you can share with our audience, right? What are some of the things that or roles and responsibility of a marketer, and how a typical day would look like for a marketer?
Good question. Okay, the first thing to bear in mind is this. A marketeer and a marketing communications practitioner are slightly different. Okay. One of the old schools about marketing is, call it the 4 Ps. Developing the product, defining the packaging for the product. 3 is placement, where is your product made available to the customers. And 4th is the promotion of the product. Or, well, in a sense, packaging, the other version of it is packaging, pricing, placement, and promotions. Okay. So, for example, in today's world, you will find it quite hard to survive as a product or business in the purely brick and mortar physical store. So many companies would have both their product available in online stores, either their own online store or through marketplace e-commerce stores, as well as have their own shop. So L'Oreal might be placed into Guardian and Watsons, but they might also be placed into Shopee, Shopify, all these other places. So that's what we sometimes call omnipresence or omni-channel marketing, right? So that is product placement. So a marketer has to think about all of these questions about the packaging, the pricing, the placement, and then promotions. Marketing communications, on the other hand, zooms in to that last P of promotions. And it's very much about how to promote the product through advertising, in-store, or whatever, right? So if you recall the media map, the last part, direct marketing can be sending you email, giving you a leaflet outside the store. It can be giving you a push note in your handphone when you walk past the restaurant, correct? Or it could be that shelf talker in the supermarket store when you are there. So that point of sale material is also marketing communications, right? But it's the direct type of marketing communications as opposed to the mass or the narrow media one, right? So that is the difference. A marketer spends his day or week or month thinking about all these things, from the packaging, pricing, from placement, do the promotions, and the marketing communications specialist will then look into the message medium, and target audience building persona. What I've covered today is mainly marketing communications, which is one part of the total marketing role.
Okay, we are already getting quite a lot of questions, but we don't have that much time. So if you guys are interested to get your questions answered, you can also email it to us. We will leave the email in the chat box where we'll get David to reply, but I think we still have time to answer a few more, which I think is quite beneficial to everybody. So someone is asking, because in secondary schools and in JCs, they don't teach marketing as a subject. So if a student who is interested to the route of marketing and advertising, so what are the things that they should look out for, or how do they get a head start in this journey? Maybe you can share with some of your personal experience on that.
Okay, I think one advantage that you all have, all of you attendees today have today, that I didn't have when I went to school. You have a teacher called Google. Okay, I didn't have Google in my days, right? So even if in school you don't have a program on marketing and all that, you can ask Google anytime, okay? And you will find lots of material available that maybe TMI. You have to decide what to see or what not to see, what to believe or what not to believe. But generally, I would advise you to experience life, okay? Read, watch, listen to as many things, consume media yourself, consume wide, broad range of media, and try and understand, the spaces you see there. Get to know people, talk to people, understand why, what drives them. You can even start building consumer personas. Look, I mean, even in secondary school, how many of you have sold something on Carousel? How many of you have bought something on Shopee or Lazada or Zalora or Q10, right? And when you do all of these things, you receive ads, you see ads, right? So now that you understand media, messaging, target audience, marketing, you look at the ads and try to understand why they did that, and make your own opinions, have your own sense of, did it work, did it not work, was it effective, did it get the right response? And you will begin to shape your mind with the knowledge and understanding for when you are able to take a marketing or marketing communications course.
I think we shall just end off this session with one last question, which I thought it was rather candid for someone who has spent majority of a career in advertising and marketing, right? So we have a question that says, is there a sector that earns little in terms of salary and remuneration?
Little?
Yeah.
That's a difficult question to answer, because I won't say that I've experienced broadly enough. In the past 30 plus years, I've been in the advertising agency or integrated communications agency. I've been on the media owner side, and I've also been on the client side. Like now I'm in the client side of the business. I wouldn't say any one side pays better or worse. I think what you do have to do is you have to build your professional credentials to justify the best pay you can get. In every sector, you will have those who are getting lower pay, and you will have those that are getting higher pay, right? And I think it's about being the best you can be so that you can justify and deserve that better package. I know art directors who were making more, a higher salary than, client service directors. But at the same time, at other agencies, I know the client servicing side is paid better than the creative side. So I don't think it's like saying one particular role tends to be paid worse than another role or skill set. I think it's about within each skill set, trying to be the best you can be to get to the top of that skill set.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with that. As with our last speaker, if it's something that you are passionate in working, then I think the money comes in second, because you have to choose a career that you have passion and you have the vigor to work in. Anyway, to sum it up, we would like to thank David for taking time out of his very busy schedule to actually speak with us and give a brief introduction and insights to marketing communications. And I hope all the students, you have a brief look at what to expect in marketing communications and how you can integrate these skills that you picked up today into your daily life. Again, if you have any further questions or if you have any unanswered questions that you would like David to answer, please feel free to email to us. Our email is info@scholarshipguide.sg, and we'll get David to reply with his input. And with that, we conclude today's session. Hope everybody continue to stay safe. It's good that we are going to progress on to phase 3 in the next week. So everyone just remember to stay safe, and we hope to see you in our next webinar, and have a good evening. Thank you, David.
Thank you, everyone. Hope you enjoyed it.